Hey everybody, welcome to the final episode of this year's Halloween in July quarantine extravaganza. What is it, like mid-August now? Yeah, I have to admit that these videos got delayed since things are getting pretty bad over here in Orange County. Gilbert Street declared itself a sovereign nation, and now downtown Fullerton is an active war zone between the crust punks and the trust-funded adult Disney fanatics. Apparently this all started because somebody tried to do a feel-good show tune with their talking animal friends inside of an abandoned Union Pacific depot that was considered to be a scene heritage site by the punks. To make matters worse, I've got some stage 1 man bun going on right now thanks to shutdown, so I guess I'm bringing this look back. It's okay though, because thanks to my wife's acceptance into graduate school, we're moving to a place that's as far as we can possibly be from a Disney brand theme park while still being in the continental United States. As you're watching this, I'm presently doing a cannonball run across the country to get us to our new apartment in time for orientation, so in the meantime, I thought it'd be nice to finish up this spooky game series with a classic. The Penumbra series. Penumbra is a first-person thriller adventure series by indie studio Frictional Games. If you think you know that name, that's because they're the guys behind Amnesia, The Dark Descent, and SOMA. This was a series that gave them their big break, and a lot of the stuff you'll see introduced and refined in the Penumbra trilogy would be perfected in Amnesia. It was actually kind of surreal playing these games, as I personally played Amnesia first, and when I went and played the trilogy of Penumbra games, a ton of things clicked in my head. So let's talk about where this all started. Penumbra, or Penumbra Tech Demo as it's now called. The Penumbra Tech Demo started out as a really polished tech demo to show off the HPL Engine, which while initially was meant for 2D assets, Frictional decided to make it into a fully 3D engine. Asterisk. I have to admit I don't quite understand the machinations here, but I know that I'm playing a 3D game. Penumbra Tech Demo plays really well for something that was supposed to just showcase an engine, and it's even got a full-blown voiceover narration for protagonist Philip, something that the later games wouldn't have in lieu of having other people talk to you and making Philip a silent protagonist. The tech demo took off. I mean, it really took off. They ended up releasing a major patch for what was supposed to be just a showcase for the HPL engine, and the rest was history in the form of 3 games, 2 going on 3 fan games, and a proper spiritual successor that became a YouTube kingmaker. And Frictional Games becoming a fixture in the indie horror scene. Oh, and by the way, this tech demo was and still is totally free to download, and I've included a link to download the game if you want to try it out for yourself. It runs reasonably well, just you kinda have to fight it a little to make it run in resolutions higher than 720p. After things went so well for Frictional with the Penumbra Tech Demo, the demo was built out and refined into Penumbra Overture. The tech demo was first uploaded in July of 2006, and this came out in March of 2007, which is pretty fast, until you become aware that Overture was meant to be the start of an episodic series, and that the game itself is fairly short. My playthrough clocked in at just under 4 hours. The game follows Philip from the tech demo, who's a 30-year-old physicist that gets a letter from his supposedly dead, deadbeat daddy, telling him to come and check out some sketchy stuff over in a remote part of Greenland. Upon arrival, Philip finds himself trapped in an underground facility with only a flashlight, a crazy man on the radio, and some very bad doggies to keep him company. Most of the game is spent trying to solve puzzles with the physics engine and creeping around this derelict facility of questionable purpose while trying to avoid the enemies, as Philip is not exactly a hardened soldier or even remotely good in a fight. Infected dogs and spiders are out there looking for him, and if they find him, Philip can only take 3 hits on normal before dying. You can try to fight off enemies with a hammer and later a pickaxe that I think does a little more damage, but this has got to be one of the most hokey combat systems I've ever seen in a game, and if you want to successfully fight everything off, you're gonna have to cheese a bit by luring enemies into a corner with jerky and then wailing on them in a corner so they can't recover and call for help. It's so bad that if you poke around in the game's configuration files, there's a different mode called easy combat or something like that, where you don't have to swing your weapon anymore, but just left click is a swing attack and right click is a jab attack, which I was a good sport. I didn't turn it on. I played the whole game with the hokey combat as it was intended. You can also pop some painkillers to reset your hits, but being in the menu doesn't stop time, and you're almost always better off sneaking away than fighting something. If Philip crouches in a dark, low visibility area, not only will his night vision increase, but also if he stays still, he'll essentially become invisible to enemies unless they're right on top of him. A lot of the puzzles here are physics-based with a hearty splash of that good old adventure game crackhead logic mixed in just to keep things interesting enough to keep you going. And like in Amnesia and other adventure horror games, it really amplifies the puzzle solving when you gotta keep watching your back for monsters. Now, let's talk about what most of you might be thinking since I started showing the Penumbra gameplay. The similarities between Penumbra and Amnesia: The Dark Descent are pretty much everywhere, and it's a lot like how System Shock 2 is to BioShock. Yeah, I know there's a whole lot of BioShock reference on this channel, as it's still a good analogy though. From how the inventory is managed, to the use of a light source and keeping it adequately fueled up, to the need to fiddle around with and play with every door and drawer you see because it's just so satisfying to do. Amnesia's got Penumbra's blood running through its veins. I never realized it until I got through both series, but those weird things you kept finding in Amnesia that gave you cryptic bits of exposition actually do serve a purpose, as they're a reference to the save system in Penumbra, and come to think of it, this means that there's a possible implication that Penumbra and Amnesia might be in a shared universe. I also think that it's worth mentioning that one of the few major contrasts between the games is that while light does play a major role in both of them, while the light is your friend in Amnesia, it's your enemy in Penumbra. Yes, while you will need light to see things, Philip is not nyctophobic and has some pretty good night vision. Creating unnecessary light is nothing more than a good way to get most of Satan's kennel on your back really fast, so maybe keep that lighter in your pocket and keep those lanterns unlit during your Penumbra playthrough. Shortly after the release of Penumbra: Overture, we got the release of the sequel/next episode in the Penumbra trilogy, Penumbra: Black Plague. And I do mean shortly. Black Plague came out inside of a year of Overture's release, which in turn came out inside of a year of the tech demo. Every installment of Penumbra came out within a year of the next most previous installment, which even after you consider how short these games are, is pretty impressive. Black Plague follows up almost exactly where Overture left off, with Philip now being deeper in the mysterious shelter facility, trying to figure out what exactly his father and this group called the Archaic were up to in Greenland, but now he has a wisecracking tapeworm in his brain. Also, zombies. The first thing you're gonna notice playing Black Plague is there are no more evil doggies or spiders, and that the combat system has been entirely removed. I'm not exactly complaining though, as Overture's combat system was easily one of the most janky I've ever played. Black Plague instead chooses to emphasize hiding from the enemy, who is now capable of using tools such as a flashlight to better seek you out, or a crowbar to better beat you to a pulp. Things get a little closer to how they'd appear in Amnesia, with your flashlight now consuming batteries much faster, and you have to manually load in batteries for some proper resource management. I have to admit though, playing on normal, I had 10 batteries to spare by the time I got to the end sequence of the game. The major changes in Penumbra: Black Plague have to do mostly with Philip's new friend, Clarence, the tapeworm. Your parasitic friend can and will mess with you in multiple ways, including creating apparitions, altering what you see, and even changing the map layout a bit to mess with you. If you aren't careful, these are going to facilitate some reloads. There's also a new element of secret hunting, in which you'll be looking for these little statues that seem to be hidden just about everywhere in-game, and if you get all of them, you unlock a secret in the game files, much like in Amnesia later on, and also a little bonus game towards the end of the game's run. There's a lot more stacking and looking through nooks and crannies to find these, in addition to all the other things that you'll need to complete the game. And now, I normally don't talk about such bonus codes, since I like to leave something for you guys to figure out when you play the game, but I can't help but notice the code is XOR451. 451. But in all seriousness, in Overture and Black Plague, the use of the physics engine and objects to allow you to do some things in ways that weren't quite intended gives you some level of emergent gameplay, but it's not exactly what I consider a full-blooded immersive sim. Okay folks, it's time to take a break to talk about something even more terrifying than psyops lunatics, psychic little girls with cannibal children, or even parasitic zombie men. Sketchy companies that are trying to buy influence with YouTubers to try and fool people into using their products. For those of you who are new to the channel, this is a segment I call the anti-sponsor, in which we take the time to lampoon one of these questionable ad deals I turned down, thanks to all the lovely folks at patreon.com/charlatanwonder. Today's anti-sponsor comes from something I was actually considering doing a promo deal for about a moment until things fell apart. Keeping things as vague as I can to deny these people any publicity, I got a boilerplate email from a small firm who ran a desktop-based social app similar to group video watching sites like SciTube or watching a YouTube premiere. I used to be pretty into sites like SciTube before they started really going downhill, so I was interested in this. I did my research on them and everything seemed to check out. It was an actual company, was an actual app that a small number of people were actively using, and after digging around and finding their terms of service and the nitty-gritty of things, everything seemed to be on the level for now. They weren't even selling data or anything, they just collected only what they absolutely needed to make sure the app worked properly. So I emailed them back after a bit and was like, okay, I've looked into you guys and your TOS and everything seems cool. Let's do a deal. And then a month passed, which I consider to be ghosting me on this. They were obviously interested in me before, as they sent multiple emails to me before I responded, and I had replied within the same day as the most recent email, which left me asking, what about me looking into how scrupulous they were set them off? Well, after looking through the emails again, I couldn't help but notice something odd about all their example videos of previous sponsorship deals I had done. Neither of the examples videos said anywhere that they were sponsored by the company that made the product, and both of them were masquerading as reviews or tutorials instead of being an out-and-out promotion, which according to the pitch email, they most certainly were. That's a big yikes for me right there, as this kind of behavior can and will get you in trouble with the FCC. If this is what they considered to be an acceptable sponsored video, and if they got all skittish when I mentioned that I thoroughly research anyone who wants to do anything with my channel, it makes me wonder what else they might or might not be above board about. I really wanted this one to work out, since as you know, thanks to that big update video I put out a few weeks ago, I need all the money I can get right now, but I'm still going to refuse any and all questionable sponsorships because I get all the support I need from you at patreon.com/charlatanwonder, where you can support this channel and keep the terrible mobile game ads away for less than the price of a 6-pack of Charmin Ultra Strong at Target.com. And now that I figured out how to do it, all patrons will get access to videos early. What you choose to do with your money though is your own. So let's get back to the Penumbra franchise. So while Penumbra was originally intended to be an episodic trilogy, after things started to go sour with Paradox Interactive, they decided that it was only going to be a two-parter. However, Penumbra Requiem is still a thing. Requiem is considered not to be a part of the trilogy, but instead to be an expansion pack to Black Plague. Now, as I understand it, expansion packs tend to expand on the previously established mechanics of its base game and serve as a stopgap between the base game and the upcoming sequel. Requiem seems to be the opposite of that, as it strips away most of Black Plague's mechanics and there is no sequel to come after it. There's no more battery management with your flashlight. In fact, kind of like in Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs, you can keep your flashlight on from the start of the game to the very end without having the battery go down. And there's no more real inventory management or needing to combine items, and heck, because of the flashlight, while you start the game with 4 flares, you never need to use them, and there aren't even any enemies to run and hide from anymore. And the only time you might need to use the healing items that are rather generously scattered about the game is if you take a fall while backtracking because you just don't want to wait for recovery. So what's in Requiem? Essentially 3 types of puzzles over just under 10 levels. They can be categorized as a slow, awkward platforming segment, the go grab a thing on one side of the level and then backtrack all the way over to the other side of the level, and wrestle with the physics engine. All the levels are centered around grabbing portal exit keys that will let you traverse a portal thing that takes you to the next area, since who needs continuous maps that make the game feel like you're playing in a real place where people might have lived or worked in. Oh, and there's also a lot of slowly pushing objects around too. That's going to be a thing you do a lot. I gotta be honest here, after playing pretty much all of Frictional Games' library, Requiem is easily their worst installment, and if this was the result of Paradox's meddlesome influence, I can now completely understand why Frictional has gone full indie ever since. Charl, you haven't been going over the story elements in this video. Well, don't you fret, because we're about to go over all of it now. Since the Penumbra games are fairly short, with Overture and Black Plague being only about 4 hours long each, and Requiem being just under 3 hours long, I figured that I'll just wait until we've covered all the games to go over the story. Spoilers until the timestamp. So, Philip gets a parcel from his supposedly dead daddy after his mother's funeral, with details about some sketchy stuff going on in a remote part of Greenland. Philip charters a boat, and upon arrival, almost immediately gets trapped inside of a derelict mining facility facility, which seems to have something else going on in it. There's all sorts of strange artifacts around, and something is very wrong with the local wildlife. There's also some reports about whatever was in the rock that people used to mine down here causing people to go crazy. Kind of like Red. You don't know much about Red, save for the fact that he's absolutely nuts and goes from being your best friend to your worst enemy in a matter of minutes back and forth. And I gotta say, he kind of speaks like how I'd expect a Frictional Games universe Malkavian to talk. Whatever your father wanted you to find in here was really deep in these mines, because you've got to go much farther into the mines to even get close to the entrance of where your dad and his friends were hiding out. You also learn that there's some sort of parasitic infection that's caused most of the people who were here to either die or become zombies called the Tunget. Red's got it pretty bad, to the point of where the only reason he's still alive is that the parasite is controlling his mind to stop him from ending his life. But now that you're here, you really need that key. Upon entering the facility, you go towards the one person you can see in Penumbra Overture, and they clean your clock. End of part 1. Later on in Penumbra Black Plague, you wake up inside of the shelter, the secret facility that the secret society your dad was a part of, the Archaic, was studying lost knowledge in. It turns out that lost knowledge was the Tunget, and now they've infected you. Meet Clarence, your new parasite buddy who spends the next few hours literally messing around inside your head and causing you to kill people, like this one nice scientist who was one of the last sane people in the shelter. There was also Dr. Eminus, but he's thoroughly infected at this point, and you have to shove him into a server room or something to stop him from killing you, but it's kind of your own fault for giving a crazy man a rusty saw. As Clarence's influence gets worse, you begin to experience mass hallucinations that are some sort of test. It turns out the Tunget are a hive mind that initially coexisted pretty well with early humanity, but as humanity began to develop more complex societies and started making war and stuff, the Tunget went into hiding for both parties' benefits. The problem here is that 1, the Archaic have rediscovered the Tunget and want to try and use them to their own ends, and 2, Clarence is an individual in a hive mind society, and that's causing a lot of problems for everyone since Clarence isn't exactly taking his newfound individuality very well. Philip eventually uses the notes from his scientist friend whom he accidentally killed, not even an hour after the fact, to get Clarence out of his body. Clarence finds a new host body nearby and chases you around for a bit, but he's committed the ultimate sin of a Tunget by not only being an individual, but also having his own individual body. So the rest of the Tunget stop what they're doing to go get rid of him. The Tunget hive mind give Philip a sort of spirit journey to test his morality, and then he secretly composes an email to a friend which you've been seeing in the beginning of these installments, pleading with them to find and destroy this facility before anyone can ever find it again. Then in Requiem, Philip does a bunch of weird physics puzzles with a bunch of tech which was never established that the Archaic have, while he hears the ghost of Red, a psychic link with Dr. Eminus, and an announcer who breaks the fourth wall. I really get the feeling that they wanted to do so much more with Requiem and whatever was going to come after Black Plague, since at the beginning of the game this announcer mentions multiple new arrivals, but then never brings it up again. At the end of Requiem, Philip can either choose to throw himself into the same furnace that Red perished in, or to just go back to the boat and have a mental breakdown on the way home. And that's where it ends. However, there are a few technically not canon fan mods that continue the story of Penumbra. So a good 6 years after the Penumbra series was done as far as Frictional Games was concerned, and they had moved on to other projects such as the Amnesia series and SOMA, a group of indie devs called Countercurrent Games made a fan sequel to the Penumbra series in Penumbra Necrolog. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth with these fan games since they're technically not bona fide Penumbra games, and also they're free mods, so it's much lower stakes if you want to check these out for yourself. Also, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I kind of got to put my computer in a box now and pray it doesn't get damaged in the cross-country move, so I got to wrap this up. Necrolog is built off Amnesia's HPL engine and follows the events immediately after Black Plague in a way that kind of retcons what happens in Requiem, but there's a bit more to it. There's a lot more Tunget now, and almost all of this is going to be played with just the flashlight. I hope you like physics puzzles. And was that not enough for you? Well, Countercurrent also made Penumbra, Twilight of the Archaic, which is more of a side story than a continuation of the main series. In Twilight of the Archaic, you play as members of the Archaic Society, who are just trying to do their best to survive the Toonget outbreak while it's all going down. There's a couple new mechanics in this one, like sprinting being limited, and the use of adrenaline shots to push that limit a little further. Also, if you downloaded Necrolog through Steam, you'll also have Twilight of the Archaic installed as a launch option, so there's no need to hunt around ModDB for separate mods. And lastly, we've got the third project that Countercurrent is currently working on, Penumbra, Prisoner of Fate, which is set to be a prequel to the main Penumbra series and a mod for SOMA so that it runs on the HPL 3 engine. Prisoner of Fate will have you playing as Red, and it's still in the demo phases, so there's presently not that much going on. It's also been a while since I've seen anything from Countercurrent on this, but I'm calling 2020 the year of the free pass because, you know, pandemic. It's cool though. These are all free games made by fans, so anything we get at all is just awesome in my book. And that's going to do it for today, folks. Now, I don't exactly know when the next video is going to be since I don't have an exact window for when all my things are going to join me in my new apartment, so it could be sometime next month for all I know. As for what it's going to be about, though, well, we hit the 50,000 subscriber goal a good while ago. Thank you all so much, by the way. So the Deus Ex video is in the works, but it might take a bit. On top of that, I'm thinking about trying a new series adjacent to what was supposed to be Halloween in July that I'm tentatively calling Indie-ween, where I make a series of small videos during the month of October focusing on smaller indie horror titles. Like right now, off the top of my head, I'm thinking I might do the Faith trilogy, maybe a few source mod classics like Zombie Panic and Zombie Master, possibly Lisa. I haven't decided yet. I just want to try to make like short, sweet videos about short, sweet indie games. And then maybe we'll round out the year with another Deus Ex video or two, and possibly a couple other videos I've been meaning to do. Did you know that Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone had a unique game for every console it was ported to when the movie was coming out, which in turn it came out right in between console generations? Well, whatever I end up making, make sure to subscribe and ring that stupid bell so you get to see it. I want to take the time to give a shout out to all my $10 patrons over at patreon.com/charlatanwonder, where I'm now releasing videos early for any and all patrons that choose to pledge. Special thanks to Elise Nera, The Shogun, Niles D, Yannick Z, Caleb P, Memesh, Slingding, Jacob N, Dead Negator, Karlski, Chili Moon Buns, OMG Ponies, Bam Bam Toxico, McFluffers, and French Toast. And a big hello and welcome to new patrons at the time of recording this, E. Johns, Anton V, and Nick. I'd like to encourage all of you to mosey on over to patreon.com/charlatanwonder, where you can fight the good fight against terrible sponsors for less than the price of a vending machine soda on a college campus. I understand if money's tight right now for you though, and it's totally cool if you can't or won't. Enjoying these videos is all you need to do to be a part of this wonderful dumpster fire that we call the community. Oh, and before I forget, speaking of community, feel free to come join us in the Discord server where every Saturday we all get together and play Command & Conquer Renegade X. Although probably not this Saturday because I'm nowhere near a computer right now. Still feel free to drop in and say hi though. If you still want to help me out though through means other than Patreon, I do have an affiliate deal with the Humble Store where you can purchase the Penumbra trilogy if you wanted to get in on it, and a little bit of that purchase will go my way at no extra cost to you. So in the meantime, stay safe, stay inside, wash your hands and wear your mask when you have to go out, and thank you for watching. Have a cat video. Oh snap, I'm out here in the yard, and Twinsy's hanging out. Frisk is somewhere in there. It's you, if you just lost the weight. We're working on it, folks. He's getting more exercise. He's having less snacks, he's on his weight control. I think we're making progress. Regardless, he's still a large boy, unlike this fellow right here. He is a perfectly fit little kidder. Oh, you gotta go for the fence jump? I think they're weirded out that I'm narrating this. They're not used to this kind of silliness. Not like Frisk. Wow. Meow meow. Oh, they're gonna go for it? They're gonna go for Oh, there they go. They're somewhere up there. Oh no, they're gone. They're long gone. Oh, never mind. There they are. Bye-bye. Frisk's twin is back. What are you plotting? And why did you destroy the apple tree? What are your machinations? Let's investigate. Is this 60 frames? I can't tell. Alright, he went somewhere in the fallen apple tree. I think we've been eluded. Really, I'm just procrastinating on my workout now. Don't know where he went, but he has thoroughly bamboozled us. I call hacks.